Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today we have Travis, the CEO of Oddball. Travis, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, give us a brief background about yourself before starting Oddball.
Yeah, sure. So my career started actually right out of high school. I enlisted in the United States Army as a medical laboratory technician, and I worked in hospitals and the like after training, and then went to college. I was in the reserves, so I was sort of bouncing in and out of college. 2009, I got out of college and I got out of the Army within like a month of each other. So it was a big year for me, and went to go work for the Federal Reserve. It was during the height of the financial crisis, and I was actually didn't have much to do, which was a data systems analyst. So just moving data through legacy systems at the Federal Reserve, and did that for a bit. Went to go work for Accenture as a management consulting analyst, and really enjoyed that work there. Got exposure to a lot of different aspects. I was actually very fortunate because I got to work both in the federal space and the commercial space as a management consultant. Worked for a couple different agencies, and then also a large mortgage bank down in Richmond, who shall remain nameless, as is the tradition of consultants. Exactly. And then went to business school, graduated from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business in 2014. And I set out going to business school with the intention of becoming an entrepreneur, starting my own company. And I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do, but I wanted to like invent something. That was my big thing. And so I had a lot of bad ideas. Let's just call a spade a spade. I wanted to build, a wrench for electricians, to twist wires, only to find out that electricians don't twist wires anymore. So learned a lot about being a failed entrepreneur, which was great. Fail fast, fail often. And then after business school, I went to go work for a large construction company for a little bit. Really quickly found out that was not for me, and decided to take the plunge. Moved out to Oakland, California, start my own company. Failed at that for about 8 months, but did learn a lot. Finally, I went down to LA. The one thing that I really took from Oakland was you have to know something about tech. You don't have to be an expert coder to run a tech company, but you do have to know a little bit about it. So I set out to learn tech, and that's where I met my business partner. He was the head instructor at the coding boot camp that I attended, and we became friends, worked together. He was a pretty tough instructor. I learned a lot from him. And then at the end I said, hey, my final project, it's pretty terrible, but my client says they pay for it. So why don't we start a company together and launch this product? And we chased that dream for about 6 months before we ran out of money. And then finally found our success, just taking a left turn and moving into services, and grew Oddball from there.
Interesting. This is what I discuss with my team as well, all the time, that it's primarily not about failing. It's about figuring it out that, if you work on something and people fail after 8 years, might as well, you should figure it out in the first 4 months. So
absolutely.
So I take it from a different perspective, that you work on something after 8 years, if you're going to close it, might as well close it within 4 months. So it's about cutting your losses short and everything. Right? Mm-hmm. So unfortunate times because of COVID, but on the other side, it's acting as a catalyst for multiple companies while the others are filing for bankruptcy. Technology, obviously, software is going to eat up the world. Just an example of Zoom, right? So in January, Zoom was at $10 billion, and all the airline companies, they were at $127 billion. Today, Zoom is at 48, and those 7 are at $46 billion. So just amazing how things happen. So have you seen any momentum picking up? So since you've been working on a lot of legacy systems that have been on servers, and they didn't invest a lot on going serverless onto the cloud. So are you seeing that workflow in flux, and how are you coping over there?
Yeah, absolutely. Oddball is a federal contractor, so we focus exclusively on the federal space, working in DoD, Department of Veterans Affairs, Center for Medicaid and Medicare. So the work that we've been doing has accelerated during COVID. Modernizing legacy systems, was sort of a, yes, we know we need to do this, we will get to it. And with COVID, it's become a, oh, we should have done this 10 years ago. And
Exactly.
so for Oddball, we've definitely been at the forefront of, how do you get remote care to veterans during COVID? How do you make your system scalable? How all of a sudden do you help people understand how to work at home? One of the really impactful things someone said to me when we first started this thing, Oddball has always been a remote first company. So our employees, we know how to do remote. That's what we do. But a lot of the people who we work with don't know how to do it. And so one of the things one of my mentors said to me was, have empathy for the employees who this is new for, because this is scary for them and they are going to be frustrated. And we have seen a lot of that, but at the same time, we have seen people really embracing the remote work lifestyle and really enjoying it.
Interesting. So since Oddball has been a remote first company, so any 3 or 4 tips of advice that you would like to share with other CEOs out there or who are looking to start, how to take care of the productivity, the creativity, as well as the mental health of the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I have two things that come to mind initially, but I'll try to think of a third while I'm talking. The main thing is the idea of a remote first company versus a remote company. And I would say that Oddball has learned about the difficulties of running a hybrid company a couple times, actually. When we first started, we had 3 people in a small office and 1 person in Colorado. And after not too long, that person called me and said, this is not working for me. I love working with you all, but I just feel isolated. And when that happened, we shut down the office except for 1 day a week, and we went fully remote. And what we found was that you can either be one or the other, but it's very, very difficult to straddle that fence between both of them. And so my advice to companies is to embrace it. Be bold, be remote, or be not remote, but don't try to be both, because it is extremely difficult. The second piece I would say is, I guess, sort of aligned with this, be remote or don't be remote. Don't try to enforce the same type of rules that you would for a non-remote company. For example, if you are a remote company, you can't be a butts and seats company. You have to trust people. If you don't trust people, don't hire them. And what this plays out at is, we've seen companies who are struggling with this, and they'll say, okay, if you are going to go walk the dog, you need to check out. You got punch in, punch out. And I mean, to me, this is totally missing the point of remote, right? You're able to get so much more productivity out of your employees when you trust them and when they know you trust them, because they're saying, I need to earn this trust. I need to earn this trust that you've given me. And they end up working so much harder and feeling so much more ownership over the company. So that would be the second piece of advice. A third piece of advice, I could make something up, but it would be kind of trite.
So lastly, going forward, I'm a big advocate of remote work as well myself, at Gaper, and this is what we've been doing. But do you think the legacy companies will transition towards a remote world, or once the world goes back to normal, they'll be back to their old system?
This is a great question. I would say it's too strong to say I think something will happen.
Yeah.
More like I'm fascinated to see what will happen.
You're on camera, we can always get that back to you. Hey, you're right. Hey, you're wrong.
I'm wrong. So what I would say is one of two things is likely to happen, right? Either we will see an acceleration of where everybody's going, right? In that everybody will go remote. Everybody will find that, oh, this isn't that bad. People do their work. You can tell when somebody doesn't do their work, and you can, take corrective action if needed. And in that case, I think then you're going to see companies saying, why are we spending so much money on facility costs when we could not? Why are we limiting ourselves to this talent pool when we could, look through the entire United States or the entire world? And I think that if that happens, we will see a dramatic shift in what work means. There'll be all sorts of crazy reductions in pollution and traffic, and there won't be a morning commute. I think the other possibility is that companies, I should say, will sort of fail at this. They will do a hybrid approach, and then they'll say, there's all these problems with remote work, and they won't realize that the problems are stemming from the hybrid approach. They're not stemming from the remote work. They're stemming from trying to merge two cultures. And they'll just, remote doesn't work. And then we'll just have remote companies and we'll have non-remote companies. But over the long term, the remote companies are so much cheaper, so much faster, so much better at what they do, that these non-remote companies are sort of like the Kodaks of yesteryear.
Yeah. No, I never thought it like that, actually. So now that's really an interesting thought. So I'm sure we could have talked for at least half an hour, but my team has told me I have to strictly keep it within 10 to 12 minutes. But Travis, thank you so much for being on the show. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Thank you. Have a good one. Stay